Alright, that's enough. You can't sit here. Get up. Now.
I'm not causing a problem. I'm just waiting.
I don't care. No badge, no reason, you're out. Let's move.
You didn't ask my reason.
I don't need one. Doors. Now.
You might want to write this carefully. I'm the hospital's CEO.
The security camera timestamp reads 2:17 a.m. Fluorescent lights hum. A hospital lobby smells like disinfectant and rain-soaked coats. A calm black man sits quietly, hands folded, waiting. The guard doesn't ask his name. He doesn't ask why he's there. He just reaches for the radio and decides who belongs. In less than 60 seconds, a routine choice exposes a fault line that runs through power, race, and the quiet violence of assumption. If you've ever wondered how ordinary decisions inside respected institutions can carry extraordinary consequences, stay with the story. Watch closely how a single moment unfolds and how accountability doesn't arrive with noise, but with irreversible change. The night air clung to the glass doors like a second skin, cold and wet, the kind of damp that seeps into uniforms and makes cheap radios crackle. Inside the hospital lobby, everything was too bright for the hour. Fluorescent panels washed the marble floor in a pale, merciless light. Somewhere behind a secured door, a floor buffer whined and faded, then returned again like a distant insect. The wall clock above the reception desk clicked forward with the patience of some that had seen every kind of human fear and learned to stop reacting. At 2:17 a.m., the security camera in the upper corner blinked, its red dot recording without judgment, without context, without mercy. In the frame, a man sat in one of the molded plastic chairs near the vending machines, his coat still damp at the shoulders. He wasn't pacing. He wasn't arguing with anyone. He wasn't slumped or half asleep. He sat upright, hands folded loosely in his lap, eyes steady on the glass hallway that led deeper into the building. He looked like he'd done this before, waited, not just tonight. In life. Across the lobby, Officer Daniel Rains walked his loop with a practiced rhythm. He wasn't a police officer, but the badge on his chest was designed to borrow authority from the real thing: contracted security, third-party company. The hospital liked it that way. Ability pushed outward, control kept inward. Daniel's boots made a soft squeak on the waxed floor. He kept his shoulders squared, posture drilled into him during a 2-week training course that promised de-escalation, situational awareness, and risk prevention. The instructors had given him scripts. They had not given him insight. He saw the man the way he'd been trained to see people after midnight, as a question mark. After-hours visitors were supposed to check in, present identification, and state a reason. It wasn't a law, not exactly, more like policy dressed up as certainty. The sign on the wall said, "Visitors must register after 9 p.m." beneath a list of exceptions that were vague enough to protect the hospital and strict enough to protect the staff's comfort. Emergencies, immediate family, authorized personnel. The rest were left to interpretation. Interpretation was where the trouble lived. Daniel paused at the reception counter, glanced at the empty chair behind it. The night receptionist had stepped away, bathroom break, maybe just hiding from the quiet. The lobby was supposed to be controlled through checkpoints, a desk, a badge scanner, security presence. But the hospital ran lean at night. Everyone did. The man in the chair met Daniel's eyes for a brief moment, and then looked away, not in submission, not in defiance, just in the ordinary way people look away when they don't want a stranger to claim their attention. Daniel's radio hissed softly on his shoulder. He touched it out of habit, felt its hard plastic, the single button that made him feel connected to a larger force than himself. He walked closer. "Sir," Daniel said, voice low but firm, not rude, not friendly either. A professional tone he'd learned was safest. "Can I help you?" The man turned his head slowly. His face held the calm of someone conserving energy. "I'm waiting," he said. "For who?" Daniel asked. "For someone inside." Daniel's eyes flicked to the hallway again, to the badge-locked doors that led to the elevators. "After-hours policy is you need to check in with reception. You got an ID?" The man didn't reach for his wallet. He didn't flinch. He didn't argue. He simply nodded once, like he'd heard the sentence before, like it belonged to a familiar category of conversation. "I do." "Okay," Daniel said, and his tone tightened almost imperceptibly. "Then I'm gonna need to see it." There was a pause, 2 seconds maybe. But in a lobby that still, 2 seconds felt like a held breath, the man's hand moved toward his inside coat pocket, slow, careful. Daniel's body shifted with it. A half step back, shoulders braced. His hand hovered near the belt where his flashlight hung, where a canister of pepper spray sat clipped like a punctuation mark. The man stopped halfway, noticing it. His hand settled back down. "You don't need to do all that," the man said quietly, not accusing, not pleading. Just stating a truth that Daniel didn't want to hear. Daniel's jaw tightened. He glanced once more toward the empty desk. The safest thing, per training, was to control the environment, keep unknown persons from lingering, reduce exposure, document the contact. He pressed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Rains in main lobby. I've got an after-hours visitor refusing to check in. Requesting supervisor." The man's eyes stayed on Daniel, steady, unreadable. The phrase "refusing to check in" hung between them like smoke. He hadn't refused, he had paused. The difference mattered to him. It did not matter to the report. "Copy," the radio replied, distorted. "Supervisor en route." Daniel shifted his weight, trying to reclaim the shape of authority. "Sir, I'm going to ask you to step outside until reception returns. That's policy." The man exhaled. A small sound, almost a laugh, but too tired to be humor. He looked past Daniel at the doors where rain streaked down like thin veins. "I'm not here to cause problems," he said. Daniel nodded once, as if acknowledging a statement he didn't believe he could trust. "Then it shouldn't be a problem to step outside." Silence. The lobby felt suddenly louder, the hum of lights, the distant murmur of intercom announcement. In restricted corridors, the faint beep of a monitor somewhere behind walls. In that silence, Daniel's mind filled in its own story, the way it always did. A man sitting alone at night, no check-in, no visible badge. Calm, yes, but calm could be an act. That's what the instructor had said. Don't let calm fool you. What they hadn't said was that fear could also be an act performed by the one holding power. A second guard arrived, younger, thinner, with the anxious energy of someone new to the job. He stood a few feet behind Daniel, eyes flicking between the man and the exits. A supervisor followed shortly after, Officer Marla Vance, older, hair pulled tight, her expression sharpened by too many nights dealing with the aftermath of other people's worst moments. "What's going on?" Vance asked. Daniel kept his eyes on the seated man. "He's been here a while. No check-in. Won't show ID." The man's gaze turned to Vance. "That's not what happened," he said. Vance's eyes narrowed slightly, not hostile, but evaluating. "Sir," she said, "hospital policies visitors sign in after 9. If you're here for a patient, we can verify." "I'm not here for a patient," the man replied. That was the moment the air changed. The wrong answer in their minds. No patient meant no sympathetic reason. No reason meant loitering. Loitering meant risk. Risk meant action. "Then what are you here for?" Vance asked. The man hesitated. Just a fraction. Not because he didn't know, but because he was weighing something, how much truth would be safe in this room. "I'm here because I needed to be," he said. Daniel's patience thinned. "Ma'am, we can't have people just sitting in the lobby all night. It's a safety issue." Vance nodded slightly the way supervisors do when they're already thinking about paperwork. "Sir, I'm going to ask you again to provide identification and state your business. If you can't, you'll need to leave." The man looked at the doors again, then back at them. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult them. He didn't threaten. His restraint was almost surgical. "I'll step outside," he said. "But I want it noted that I complied." Daniel blinked, thrown by the phrasing. Noted, like the man understood the ecosystem of reports, how language solidifies into truth once it's typed and saved. Vance nodded once. "That's fine." The man stood slowly. He was taller than Daniel had assumed from the chair, broad-shouldered, not imposing, just solid, like someone used to carrying weight without making noise about it. He adjusted his coat, then walked toward the doors without being touched, without needing to be guided. Daniel followed at a respectful distance, hand still hovering near his belt. The younger guard shadowed behind, eyes darting. At the threshold, the man paused and turned back. His voice stayed quiet. "You're doing your job," he said. Daniel didn't answer. The man's eyes moved from Daniel to Vance. Something lived in that look, fatigue maybe, or disappointment, or something colder, recognition. "And so am I," the man added. Then he stepped into the rain. The doors shut behind him with a soft pneumatic seal. The lobby returned to its sterile quiet, but the air felt altered, like a room after a storm warning. Vance looked at Daniel. "Write it up," she said. "Time, description, reason for removal." Daniel nodded, already forming the language in his head. "After hours visitor. Refused ID. Non-compliant. Removed without incident." Words that sounded clean, words that would travel upward through emails and morning briefings and legal review if necessary. Words that would become the official version of a moment that on camera would look very different. Outside, the man stood beneath the overhang, rain misting around him in the glow of the street lamp. He pulled a phone from his pocket, not hurried, not frantic, just deliberate. His thumb hovered over a name in his contacts list. The kind of name that didn't belong on a stranger's phone. The kind of name that could tilt an entire building. He pressed call. The screen lit his face for a brief second, calm, steady, and tired in a way power doesn't protect you from. Inside, Daniel sat at the security desk and began typing the report at 2:26 a.m., unaware that he was documenting the first domino in a chain that would reach far beyond the lobby. The cursor blinked. He wrote the first line. And somewhere upstairs, in a dark office that never truly slept, phone began to ring. The rain didn't stop when the call connected. It softened, thinned, turned into something quieter, like the city itself was listening. The man stood beneath the overhang, back straight. Phone pressed to his ear as headlights smeared across wet asphalt. When the voice on the other end answered, he didn't introduce himself. He didn't need to. "It's me," he said. Inside the hospital, Daniel Raines finished his report with the efficiency of someone eager to be done with the moment. He chose his words carefully, the way he'd been taught. No emotion, no speculation, stick to observable behavior. The system rewarded neutrality, even when neutrality erased context. He clicked submit at 2:31 a.m. and leaned back in the chair, unaware that the same timestamp now lived in two places: his incident log and the call history on a phone outside. The elevator on the executive floor chimed softly as it arrived empty. No one rode it at this hour, not unless something was wrong. When the doors opened, the corridor lights flicked on automatically, motion sensor, waking a hallway lined with framed mission statements and accreditation plaques. The hospital liked to display its values where staff could see them: respect, dignity, equity. Words printed in tasteful fonts, bolted to walls that had learned how easy it was to ignore them. A night administrator answered the call 2 rings in, voice thick with sleep, but trained to sound alert. The man spoke quietly, almost apologetically, as if he were inconveniencing someone by being removed from his own building. "There was an incident in the main lobby," he said. "I'd like you to pull the security footage. Timestamp should be around 2:17. There was a pause. "Sir," the administrator said carefully, "may I ask who's calling?" The man gave his name. Silence followed, not dead air, but the kind filled with rapid recalculation. The administrator sat up straighter. Somewhere, a keyboard clicked. A screen refreshed. Authority snapped into focus, not because of tone, but because of title. "Yes," the administrator said. "Of course, I'll notify." "No," the man interrupted gently. "Not yet. I just want the footage preserved." "Understood." Outside, he ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket. He didn't go far. He stayed where he was, watching the automatic doors open and close for ambulances, for staff returning from smoke breaks, for movement that suddenly felt separate from him. Belonging, he thought, was a fragile thing. It could be revoked without warning, without explanation, without appeal. Inside, word traveled faster than footsteps. The night supervisor forwarded a message marked confidential. The facilities director received it on his tablet at home and frowned at the subject line. By 3:02 a.m., a quiet email thread had begun. No accusations, no conclusions. Just facts. just timestamps, just a request for review. Daniel didn't know any of this. He walked another patrol loop, nodded to a nurse pushing a medication cart, exchanged a joke with the younger guard about the coffee machine on the third floor. Normality reasserted itself quickly. It always did, until it didn't. At 3:18 a.m., Officer Vance's radio crackled. Supervisor Vance, contact administration then. Need you to pull your incident notes from earlier. Vance stopped mid-step. Which incident? The lobby removal dispatch said. They want details. Vance felt the shift, then the subtle tightening in her chest that came with institutional attention. She replayed the scene in her head, searching for rough edges. The man had complied. No force used. No raised voices. Clean. It should have stayed clean. Copy, she said. I'll call them. She stepped into a quiet alcove and dialed the number she'd been given. The voice on the other end belonged to someone she'd never spoken to directly, someone who existed higher up the ladder than security usually reached at night. Officer Vance, the voice said, precise and calm. Can you tell me, in your own words, why the individual was removed? Vance chose each sentence with care. Policy, after-hours access. Safety. She avoided descriptors that could be questioned later. She didn't mention race. She didn't mention tone. She didn't mention the way the man had said noted, like he knew how these things worked. When she finished, there was another pause. And did he identify himself? The voice asked. No, Vance said. Did he refuse? Vance hesitated. Just long enough to feel it. He didn't provide it, she said. The distinction hung there, delicate and dangerous. Thank you, the voice replied. We'll take it from here. The call ended at 3:47 a.m. The security footage was downloaded and time-stamped, stored on a server labeled for legal hold. No one announced it. No alarms sounded. The building continued breathing as it always had, but a line had been crossed, not by the man who'd been removed, but by the system that had finally recognized itself on camera. Outside, the rain stopped completely. The man checked his watch, then looked back at the hospital one last time before getting into his car. Tomorrow, he would walk through those doors again, not as a visitor, not as a problem, but as someone the institution knew how to name. The question was whether it knew how to learn. Morning didn't arrive with sunlight so much as with email alerts. The hospital woke in increments, phones vibrating on nightstands, laptops opening at kitchen tables, a quiet ripple of concern moving through people who understood hierarchy well enough to recognize when it had been breached. At 6:12 a.m., the first subject line appeared, Incident Review, Main Lobby, Confidential. By 6:18, it had been forwarded upward. The CEO arrived just after 7. Not through the executive entrance, but through the same glass doors as everyone else. The lobby smelled like fresh coffee now, the night's disinfectant replaced by something warmer, more human. Staff passed him without looking twice. They didn't recognize him out of context. Power, he'd learned, only registered when it announced itself. He stopped near the security desk and glanced up at the camera, the same red dot, still blinking. It had recorded everything. Cameras always did. They just didn't decide what mattered. Upstairs, the conference room lights flicked on one by one, revealing a long table polished to a mirror sheen. By policy, any incident involving removal from hospital property triggered a multi-departmental review if executive staff were involved. That clause existed mostly on paper, until it didn't. The facilities director arrived first, tie loosened, eyes already tired. Legal counsel joined by phone, her voice precise and unyielding. HR followed, carrying a thin folder that contained everything the system knew. How to measure about a person, start dates, certifications, prior warnings. The CEO took the chair at the head of the table without ceremony. Play the footage, he said. No one spoke as the video rolled. The angles were unflattering, the audio imperfect, but the story was unmistakable. The guard's posture, the pause, the radio call, the language of compliance layered over a decision that had already been made. When it ended, the room stayed quiet. This isn't about intent, legal counsel said finally. It's about exposure. The CEO nodded. Exposure to what? Title VII considerations, she replied. Pattern risk. Perception of discriminatory enforcement. The facilities director shifted in his seat. He followed policy. Which policy? The CEO asked calmly. The director hesitated. After-hours visitor access. And how many after-hours visitors were asked to leave last night? The CEO asked. Another pause. Someone checked a tablet. One. Just one. The CEO repeated. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. And how many were unbadged? 17, HR said quietly. The number landed hard. This is what authority looks like when it's unexamined, the CEO said. Not cruelty, not malice. Assumption. They moved through procedure with the care of people who understood consequence. The guard was placed on administrative leave pending review, as mandated by the hospital's contracted security agreement. The supervisor was instructed to submit a supplemental report clarifying language discrepancies. Training logs were pulled, incident patterns mapped. At no point did anyone use the word racist. Institutions preferred softer language bias, inconsistency, risk. Words that could be managed. Downstairs, Daniel was called into a small office with frosted glass walls. He sat with his hands on his knees, spine straight. The way training taught you to sit when authority entered the room. The HR representative spoke first. This is a fact-finding meeting, she said. You're not being accused at this time. Daniel nodded. His mouth was dry. Can you explain why you characterized the individual as refusing identification? Legal counsel asked, her voice coming through the speakerphone like a distant judge. He didn't show it, Daniel said. That's refusal or hesitation, she replied. Which policy defines that distinction? Daniel searched his memory. There was no slide for that, no script. I was acting in the interest of safety, he said finally. The CEO watched him closely, not with anger, not with satisfaction, but with something heavier. Recognition. Do you know who the individual was? The CEO asked. Daniel shook his head. I was, the CEO said. The sentence landed without force, but it changed the air. Daniel's eyes widened, then dropped. Shame flushed up his neck, hot and immediate. Sir, I didn't know, he said. I know, the CEO replied. That's the point. Silence filled the room. Not hostile. Educational, the kind that forces reflection whether you want it or not. This isn't about punishing you, the CEO continued. It's about understanding how power gets misused when it's not checked, including mine. Daniel swallowed. For the first time since the night before, he understood that the consequence moving toward him wasn't personal. It was structural. And structures, once questioned, rarely returned to their original shape. Discipline arrived without spectacle. No raised voices. No security escort. Just a calendar invite titled Administrative Action Review, sent at 9:04 a.m. with 3 names CCD and a meeting room number Daniel had never been in before. The room was smaller than he expected. No long table. No glass walls. Just 4 chairs. A box of tissues no one touched. And a printed copy of the hospital's contracted security standards placed neatly at each seat. The CEO wasn't there. That mattered. Consequence, when done correctly, didn't need an audience. HR spoke first. Voice steady, practiced. Based on our review of the incident, we've identified a violation of discretionary enforcement guidelines outlined in Section 4.3 of your training manual. Daniel nodded, though the words blurred together. He understood violation. He understood guideline. What he didn't understand, at least not fully, was how something that felt so routine had traveled this far, this fast. The supervisor sat beside him, hands folded. She hadn't slept. This decision is not a judgment of your character, HR continued. It's a response to risk exposure and failure to apply policy consistently. Legal counsel joined by phone again. Your contract allows for termination without cause following an internal compliance review, she said. Given the nature of this incident, the hospital has exercised that option. The sentence was clean, efficient, final. Daniel didn't argue. There was nothing to argue with. The system that hired him had found him incompatible with its future version of itself. What happens now? He asked. You'll be paid through the end of the week, HR replied. You're eligible to reapply with the firm after retraining, pending review. Retraining. The word sounded hopeful. It wasn't. While Daniel signed forms with a hand that no longer felt like his, another meeting was already underway upstairs, this one with teeth. The CEO stood at the head of the boardroom table, sleeves rolled up, jacket draped over a chair. Around him sat compliance officers, department heads, and a representative from the security contractor whose posture had shifted from confident to defensive in under 24 hours. "This isn't about one guard," the CEO said. "It never was." He clicked a remote. A slide appeared, data pulled from 6 months of incident reports. Late-night removals, badge challenges, patterns emerging where no one had thought to look. "Your training emphasizes control over context," he continued. "You teach escalation before discernment. That ends today." The contractor opened his mouth to respond. The CEO raised a hand. "We're rewriting the protocol," he said. "Immediate changes. Bias interruption training mandatory for all security staff assigned here. Revised after-hours access policy with clear, narrow criteria. And a new escalation requirement supervisor review before removal unless there's an imminent threat." Silence followed, not resistance, but recalculation. "And one more thing," the CEO added. "Body cameras." The contractor stiffened. "That's not standard for hospital security." "It is now," the CEO replied. "If we're going to give people authority over belonging, we're going to document how they use it." By afternoon, an internal memo circulated hospital-wide, carefully worded. No names, no accusations, just acknowledgement. Following a recent incident, the hospital is implementing updated access and security protocol to ensure equitable treatment and reinforce our commitment to dignity and safety for all. Staff read it between patients, between meetings. Some nodded. Some felt uneasy. Systems rarely liked being reminded they could be wrong. At 4:38 p.m., Daniel turned in his badge. The plastic felt lighter than it should have. He handed it across the desk without ceremony. The younger guard avoided his eyes. The supervisor offered a quiet nod, neither apology nor absolution. As Daniel walked out through the lobby, the space felt different, not hostile, just distant, like a place that had moved on without him. That night, the CEO returned to his office long after most lights were off. He sat alone, reviewing the final draft of the revised policy. His name would be attached to it. That was intentional. Accountability worked best when it was visible at the top. He paused at one line and rewrote it himself. Authority must never substitute for understanding. He saved the document. Justice, he knew, didn't feel like victory. It felt like weight shifted, redistributed, carried forward by people who didn't ask for it but couldn't ignore it either. Outside, the lobby lights dimmed for night mode. The camera's red dot blinked on, recording a system learning how to watch itself. Weeks passed, the kind of weeks where change doesn't announce itself but settles in quietly, like dust rearranged after furniture has been moved. The lobby looked the same to anyone passing through, same marble floors, same humming lights, same clock ticking above reception, but its rhythm had shifted. Conversation slowed. Questions came first now, not commands. New signage stood near the entrance, simple and unadorned. After-hours access, please check in. If you need assistance, ask. The language mattered. Legal had approved it. So had the CEO. Words, when chosen carefully, could widen a doorway instead of narrowing it. The security staff moved differently too. Radios still crackled. Boots still squeaked against polished floors, but there was an extra beat before engagement, a pause trained deliberately into them. Body cameras rested on uniformed chests, small black rectangles that reflected back whoever stood in front of them, not as threats, as witnesses. At 2:14 a.m. on a Thursday, the CEO entered the lobby again. No announcement, no entourage, just a coat draped over his arm, a travel mug in hand. The same calm presence that had once been mistaken for ambiguity. He took a seat near the vending machines in the same molded plastic chair under the same camera. He waited. A guard noticed him after a few minutes, not Daniel, not Vance, but someone newer, younger, with the fresh alertness of someone still learning what authority felt like. The guard approached slowly, posture open. "Sir," he said, voice even. "Good evening. Can I help you with anything?" The CEO looked up and smiled faintly. I'm waiting. The guard nodded. Understood. If you need access past this point, I can get someone for you. Would you like me to check with reception? No, the CEO said. This is fine. The guard hesitated, then did something small, almost invisible. He took a step back instead of forward. All right, he said. I'll be nearby if you need anything. He walked away. The moment passed without incident. No report filed. No name recorded. That, the CEO thought, was the quiet metric of success when dignity didn't require documentation. Upstairs, compliance dashboards updated weekly. Fewer removals, fewer escalations, more supervisor consultations logged before action. The date didn't make headlines, but it made something better: consistency. The security contractor submitted quarterly retraining certifications. Now audited. Bias interruption modules weren't treated as formalities anymore. Trainers talked less about threat and more about judgment, how quickly the brain filled gaps, how often it mistook familiarity for safety and difference for danger. Daniel never reapplied. He found work elsewhere, somewhere smaller, quieter. The job paid less, required more talking, less authority. Some nights, he thought about the lobby, the way the man had looked at him, not angry, just disappointed. He carried that memory like a bruise that only hurt when pressed. It changed the way he asked questions now. That mattered, even if no one measured it. The supervisor transferred to another facility. She took the lesson with her, the kind that didn't fit neatly into policy language, but showed up in tone and patience, in the way she listened before deciding. The CEO remained visible, not performative present. He attended security briefings, asked questions no one expected from someone in his position. Why this policy? Who does it protect? Who does it burden? He let the answers sit, even when they were uncomfortable. One evening, months later, he stood near the glass doors as rain began to fall again, watching reflections ripple across the floor. A nurse passed by and nodded. A janitor waved. Belonging, he thought, wasn't about recognition. It was about not being questioned without cause. The system hadn't been dismantled. It had been adjusted, rewired slightly toward restraint, toward humility, toward the understanding that power, left alone, would always default to exclusion. At 2:17 a.m., the clock above the desk clicked forward. The camera blinked. And this time, nothing happened, which was the point.